Can you actually heal pelvic floor dysfunction? I get asked some version of this question all the time. And I think the reason it keeps coming up is that most of the answers that women find online are either too vague to be useful or they swing between two extremes. Yes, you can fix this completely, or no, this is just your life now. And neither one of those is really quite right. And I think that both of them leave women feeling more confused and more discouraged than they need to be. So that's what I want to dive into today. I want to talk about what some of the research actually shows. I want to talk about my own experience and talk about what I hear from women in this community every day. And I'm going to start by telling you that the question itself may need some reframing, because what healing means for pelvic floor dysfunction is a lot more interesting and a lot more hopeful than a simple yes or no. When most women ask, can I heal this? What they're really asking is, will I feel like myself again? Will the heaviness go away? Will I be able to do the things that I used to do without thinking about my pelvic floor every single minute of every single day? And when we think about this, what the evidence says is that we have to think about looking at it and then deserving more than false reassurance. For example, for conditions like pelvic organ prolapse, there are structural changes that happen. The tissue may be stretching. There's the shift in how the organs are supported, and those changes are physical and real. The increased risk from vaginal childbirth, that's real. The hormonal changes, those are actually happening. The aging of connective tissue. The research does not support the idea that those structural changes fully reverse in most cases. But what the research does support clearly and consistently is that symptoms can improve significantly for most women who pursue conservative care. Their function can improve, their strength improves, their quality of life improves. So that daily experience of living with pelvic floor dysfunction can improve substantially and often dramatically. And that's not a consolation prize. That is really the actual goal of what most women who are having this conversation, that's what they're looking for. One research group who is studying pelvic organ prolapse put it this way: what becomes possible is rebuilding strength, redistributing that load, and regaining function. That is not the same as reversing something that has happened. It's something that's more honest about what's actually going on and actually more useful for us who are trying to navigate this on a daily basis and for the rest of our life. So when I talk about healing in this video, I'm going to use that different frame. Not did this anatomy go back to exactly what it was before, but has your daily life gotten measurably better? And did you get more of yourself back? For most women who pursue the right support, that answer, thankfully, is yes. Pelvic floor muscle training, that structured, supervised approach that a pelvic floor PT can guide you through, is the most well-researched conservative treatment for pelvic floor dysfunction, and that evidence is genuinely encouraging. A Cochrane review, which is one of the most rigorous types of research summaries available, found that supervised pelvic floor muscle training increases the likelihood and improvement in prolapse stage compared to no treatment and produces meaningful improvements in symptoms and pelvic floor function when done consistently over several months. A systematic review published in 2022 looked at 18 randomized controlled trials and found that pelvic floor muscle training produces improvements in prolapse symptoms, pelvic floor function, and quality of life in women who follow a structured program. Across the board, women who did the work reported feeling better. And quality of life is not a soft outcome. What the research consistently shows across multiple independent studies is that women who engage with structured conservative care report meaningful reductions in symptom burden and meaningful improvements in how they function day to day. So that symptom burden is like, is it not top of mind anymore? Am I getting that mental space back? Am I able to do the things that I need to do because my symptoms are no longer holding me back? And that is not a small thing. When your symptoms stop dominating your day, everything else changes with them. And then I want to be equally honest about where that research is more nuanced, because as we know, there's not as much research in this space as we need there to be. And so we have to rely on what's there and take other things with a grain of salt. So for structural prolapse, that anatomical stage doesn't always change. even when your symptoms can improve significantly. A woman might go from feeling that heaviness and pressure dominating her day to barely noticing it without her anatomy dramatically changing on paper. That really matters for this conversation because it means the goal of treatment is not necessarily to change what shows up on an imaging scan or what a PT feels on an internal exam. It's to change how you feel and what you were able to do. Research also shows that there's no reliable way to predict whose prolapse will progress over time and whose will stay stable. Some women manage symptoms effectively for decades without progression. Others need additional intervention. What we do know is that engaging in conservative care, pelvic floor PT, lifestyle modifications, appropriate support is associated with better outcomes over the long term. And for conditions involving muscle tension rather than structural lift, the picture is often more clearly improvable. Hypertonic pelvic floor dysfunction, where those muscles are too tight rather than too weak, it responds very well to targeted physical therapy in most cases. Women who commit to that work often experience substantial relief. The research has started to identify what predicts who does better with conservative treatment, and some of these are within your control. Consistency with pelvic floor muscle training matters enormously. Studies show that adherence is one of those strongest predictors of the outcome. The women who do the work regularly get better results than the women who do it more intermittently and inconsistently. And that sounds obvious, but it is worth saying out loud and plainly because a lot of women start and stop for a number of various reasons. And managing that intra-abdominal pressure in daily life, things like learning to lift with your core engaged and proper breathing, managing chronic constipation, modifying high impact activities during a flare up, or learning how to adjust your body for those high impact activities. Like, for example, many pelvic floor PTs can help women return to running when they thought they would never run again. Those factors affect how much load your pelvic floor is managing every day. Hormonal support matters too, particularly for perimenopausal and postmenopausal women. Estrogen plays a role in the health of our pelvic floor tissue. Conversations with your provider about hormonal support, including local vaginal estrogen, can be a part of a comprehensive plan, especially for older women, but really for all stages. And getting started matters. The research on untreated pelvic floor dysfunction followed over 1,600 women and found that without any intervention, quality of life declines significantly over time. The women who engage with care, even conservative care, they do better. Waiting and hoping rarely helps. If you've been trying to figure out what's actually going on with your body, one of the most useful starting points is tracking your patterns. When are your symptoms better? When are they worse? What makes a difference day to day? That information is genuinely useful when you talk to a provider, and it helps you notice progress that would otherwise be invisible. We have a free symptom tracker. It's a simple PDF. The link is in the description below, and it costs you nothing to start there. So check it out right after you watch this video. I want to talk about what actually getting better looks like in practice, because I think a lot of women picture healing as this straight line from, symptomatic to symptom free. And that's not usually how it goes. For most women, managing pelvic floor dysfunction, the arc looks more like this. You start by getting information, understanding what's happening in your body in plain language, and that takes away a significant amount of fear. And fear makes everything feel worse. Information gives you agency. You find a pelvic floor PT. You get an individualized assessment. You start to understand whether your muscles are too tight, too weak, or both, and what that means for how you move and breathe and carry yourself throughout your day. You make small adjustments. Maybe that's breathing differently, lifting differently, managing pressure more thoughtfully. And those small adjustments start to add up. You find what helps you feel more supported on the hard days. For some women, that's a pessary. For some, it's a support garment. For some, it's both of those. None of those things are failures. They are tools that let you keep living your life while you're doing the longer work. And then gradually the symptoms stop being the loudest thing in your mind and in the room. Margaret, who's a customer that's been part of our community for a while, described it this way. I feel more normal every day. I almost forget about my prolapse when I'm wearing them. Almost forgetting. That's what healing looks like for a lot of women. It's not erasing the fact that it happened, but it's getting enough support and function back so that it no longer dominates your day to day. In EC, a woman who was nearly 80 had prolapse repair surgery that failed after 13 years, and she still found a way to go on a bucket list safari in Botswana. She wore a hem support garment through 20 hours of flights, on bush plane rides, and daily truck trips through the African wilderness. And she described her garments as her magic underwear. That is also what healing looks like. It's not the absence of a condition, it's this refusal to let it define what's possible. So before we close, I wanted to give you something that's more concrete. The things that give you the best shot at a meaningful improvement. One, find a pelvic floor PT and get a real assessment, not just a list of exercises from the internet. An individualized evaluation of what your body is actually doing. Two, be consistent with whatever protocol your PT gives you. The women who do better are the women who do the work regularly, not perfectly, but regularly. And then three, manage your daily pressure load, how you lift, how you breathe, how you handle constipation. These are not small things. They add up over hundreds and thousands of repetitions. Number four, do not wait. The research on untreated pelvic floor dysfunction is clear. Outcomes are better for women who engage with care earlier rather than later. And then five, if you're perimenopausal or postmenopausal, have a conversation with your provider about hormonal support and the role that it might play in your overall health. And then finally, six, use the tools that help you keep moving while you're doing the longer work. A pessary, a support garment, modifications to your activity. These are not giving up. They are how you stay in your life while you build that strength. So, can you heal pelvic floor dysfunction? Here's what I believe and what the evidence supports. For most women who pursue the right care, symptoms can improve meaningfully. Function improves, quality of life improves, that daily experience of carrying this condition can get lighter. That may not look like turning back the clock, but it looks like getting a lot more of your life back, more of yourself back. And in my experience, that is what women are actually asking for when they ask if they can heal. The symptom tracker is in the description below if you want to start tracking your own patterns, and I'll link a few of the other videos below that go deeper into some of what we covered today. Take good care of yourself, and I'll see you in the next video.